intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey folks, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. We got a great show for you. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we'll be talking with the Patriots of Act 746's Dan Borum will be back with us. Now, what we're going to be talking about is a follow-up on what we discussed with Jim Ennis, a week ago. It has to do with this mid-June meeting where lawmakers at the Capitol, the Marble Palace in Little Rock, question the head of the Arkansas State Police, along with their legal counsel, their attorney, and some fascinating admissions. And we put the video of the interview from last week up at conduitnews.com. The headline, Lawmakers Say State Police Opinion on Guns Conflicts with the Law. Isn't that weird? There is certainly some tension between the Arkansas State Police and their understanding of what the law says, or what they're being told the law says, versus what lawmakers believe the law says. What the entire General Assembly that passed a resolution affirming constitutional carry, permitless carry without a permitless carry, open or concealed, meaning you don't have to have a permission slip from the government. I mean, two resolutions in both chambers a couple of months ago were approved overwhelmingly. And now the Arkansas State Police wants to push back against the people. Make no mistake, that's what this is. Our representatives that we voted for to stand up for our right, our natural right of self-preservation and self-defense, be able to carry a weapon in this state that is different from the status quo, I mean, at least before 2013. But this has been the status quo since 2013. The Arkansas State Police still will not admit what the law says, and the people's representatives go down there and clarify with a resolution, and they still refuse to admit. They are really it's really amazing how this is really a reflection of how our government is not, our Arkansas state government is not monolithic. We now have the General Assembly pitted against the Arkansas State Police. And I thought the police were there to serve the people. And apparently, that's not the case. Now, yesterday in my interview, last week, in my interview with Jim Ennis, I asked this question right here. Let me see. I pulled it up, got a transcript of it. I said, the Arkansas State Police leaves a reporter like me no choice but to speculate as to why they won't admit publicly what the law says. The first reason is because of money. In terms of the first reason to speculate is because of money. But the second reason is because of something I heard a while back when 746 was first realized, and it had to do with people in different or lower socioeconomic neighborhoods and maybe a desire not to allow them to know what the law is because they don't want people in poorer neighborhoods to know they have a right to carry a gun. So my question would be, is it possible that there's also a racial motive for not wanting to admit what the law says? Jim Ennis responded that it's possible. I mean, who knows? The reason I asked the question, number one, it needs to be asked because that very well is, might be a possibility. But number two, as someone who is also got an agenda and wants to see the Second Amendment, the idea of it shall not be infringed, actually upheld. Anytime you bring up the issue of race, there's people that get real sensitive because that's like the worst thing in the world to be, accused of, is there a racial motive involved? That tends to can get people's attention. And so that's the other reason it needs to be brought up. Anyway, I'm just trying to be transparent with you guys. All right, the telephone number 870-275-9799 if you want to call or text. Again, we'll be talking with Dan Borum more about this, more video from that June meeting. Specifically, the Arkansas State Police are claiming and we'll play you this, that the Taft versus the state of Arkansas case was about a reasonable suspicion case, not a gun case. And they're hiding behind that. They're hoping that you don't actually go read the opinion and what the judge said. And they also say things like, well, the Supreme Court didn't say that. Yeah, but it is a circuit court, and it's now written in dicta, and it is what it is. They could have challenged it. There could have been an appeal by the state, and there wasn't. So this is what we have to go by. Anyway, we'll talk more about that. It's just funny to me. That court case was, in terms of Arkansas, in terms of your rights, was a landmark decision, in my opinion. It confirmed everything the Patriots of Act 746 have been saying for years, and our own government still won't acknowledge another. So this is what's so frustrating with me. The Arkansas State Police refuses to acknowledge the state legislature, the people's representatives, so indirectly, the people. They refuse to acknowledge the people's will, and they're refusing to acknowledge what the court says. So we have the state police in contact, which is an executive agency that is in contradiction with the legislative branch and the judicial branch of our government. It's a big deal. Anyway, we'll talk more about that. Okay, also at 7:33, we'll be talking with Washington County Justice of the Peace, Patrick Deakins. Will be back on the show. It's always great to talk to him. By the way, good morning to everybody out there listening. Let's just get right to it. The Jeffrey Epstein case. There is still the media wants to tie the president to Jeffrey Epstein. You know, even though he was banned from Mar-a-Lago and everything else. But, you know, there are photos of the billionaires together, in the early 2000s and that sort of thing. Now, the issue here is that there's a labor secretary by the name of Alex Acosta. And Alex Acosta was the prosecutor that apparently gave Jeffrey Epstein a sweetheart deal down in Florida. This was, 15 years ago or something. The president facing criticism, the Democrats saying Alex Acosta should resign. I even figured that Alex Acosta would resign by now. When we started reporting this story to you, Wednesday on Monday, we started reporting this story to you. The president responded in the Oval Office yesterday in front of press. Joe, this is the YouTube video that you have there on the screen. If you will go ahead and click the play button. This is President Trump this is President Trump yesterday. Go ahead.
Well, I met Secretary Acosta this first time I know when I made the deal to bring him on into the administration. I can tell you that for 2.5 years he's been just an excellent Secretary of Labor. He's done a fantastic job. Now, part of it is our economy is so good, our unemployment numbers are at record lows. So many good things are happening. But the fact is he's been a very good Secretary of Labor. What happened 12 or 15 years ago with respect to when he was a U.S. attorney, I think in Miami. Is it Miami?
Yes.
If you go back and look at everybody else's decisions, whether it's a U.S. attorney or an assistant U.S. attorney or a judge, you go back 12 or 15 years ago or 20 years ago and look at their past decisions, I would think you'd probably find that they would wish they maybe did it a different way. I do hear that there were a lot of people involved in that decision, not just him. I can only say this from what I know, and what I do know is that he's been a really great Secretary of Labor. The rest of it we'll have to look at. We'll have to look at it very carefully. But you're talking about a long time ago. And again, it was a decision made, I think, not by him, but by a lot of people. So we're going to look at it very carefully. We'll be looking at that very carefully.
Stop.
Okay?
So I saw that yesterday, and I was, as somebody who's covering President Trump on a daily basis now, I listen to everything he says now. I mean, you have to listen to the president and what he actually says. And in doing that, I have found when you listen to the specifics, he's rarely wrong when it's all said and done. One example would be, I was wiretapped, and everyone laughed at him and made fun of him. And then, you were. And now we know that he was spied on by the former administration. And on top of that, you have claims that the FBI hired, I think, 3 or 4 independent contractors 4 years before the 2016 elections to spy on different Republican presidential candidates. One of them, Trump. I'm assuming the other one, Ted Cruz, and maybe Rand Paul, but we don't know any of that for sure. That's all speculation. But when he was right, I mean, he was more than right when he said that. Everyone laughed at him, and then we found out, oh, yeah, because of George Papadopoulos and because of the, they want to say that was the genesis of the investigation, but in reality, it all has to do whether or not this Misfud guy was a Western intelligence asset or was he a Russian intelligence asset. And they say he's Russian, but the reality is he's probably a Western intelligence asset. And if he is a Russian asset, they refuse to do a threat assessment, a vulnerability assessment, because this guy is in photos with Western intelligence agencies and diplomats. That's his career anyway. It's all very complicated, but George Papadopoulos will probably be a very wealthy man someday because of all of this. People don't like to hear that, but this is the thing. Again, pick your conspiracy theory. Go ahead and pick your conspiracy theory. That's where we are. No one trusts the arbiters of the news, or they shouldn't. And so now it's like, okay, well, Donald Trump's secretly a Manchurian KGB agent. He's a Manchurian candidate KGB agent. Or you have the Obama administration that essentially, is just as conspiratorial on the other side. I tend to lean towards the latter because the evidence that is mounting is actual evidence. Anyway, so you have to pay attention to what the president actually says here. And what he says is, Alex Acosta is a good labor secretary. Okay, setting that aside. This was 12, 15 years ago, and we're looking at it very seriously. And from what I know, and of course this is the President of the United States, who is going to get, you would assume, the best information available. From what I know, there were more people involved in making that decision. Now, how do you break that down? What does that mean? More people involved in making that decision. Well, many people online are speculating that would mean that this prosecutor was given a mandate, or this prosecutor was forced by people above him that were more powerful than he was to do what he did. And considering we're dealing with Jeffrey Epstein here, considering we're dealing with a billionaire here, we have a situation. I mean, we have that's something to consider. That's not outlandish. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein got the sweetheart deal, and he's been walking free for a long time. So, I mean, as somebody who was like, yeah, get rid of him, get rid of Acosta, whatever, he's a liability. I find President Trump's explanation reassuring. I mean, wouldn't you want somebody to look at the situation very carefully and get all of the facts before you make a decision about a firing or demanding a resignation or whatever? And think about that. President Trump has every political reason to get rid of Alexander Acosta right now. Yesterday, but he hasn't. What does that say about President Trump? It says, once again, he refuses to march to the beat that the media and the Democrats want him to march to. You must fire him now. If this was any other administration, the guy would have been gone yesterday. But he's not. And the president says, whoa, I don't have to do anything. I can wait, get the facts, and do something moving forward. Very interesting times that we live in. We're going to take a break. Telephone number 870-275-9799. We'll be back here in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. Hey folks, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. So we do these segments called Young Conservatives. We want you to know the future of the conservative movement. There are young people out there that actually believe in smaller government and things like that. And so I was introduced to. I met this gentleman here sitting next to me. I guess at the Greene County Republican Committee last week, and was talking with Anita Wells, who's the chairman of the Greene County Republicans. And we talked about doing a Young Conservative segment with this man sitting next to me. His name is John Williams. John, how are you, sir?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for having me on, Paul.
Yep, absolutely. So, first of all, John Williams, a name like that, you're going to hear about, obviously, the famous composer.
Yeah.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
ConduitNews.com, does it control spending, courtesy of Conduit for Action. Check this out up at the front page. It is pretty interesting when you look at the Revenue Stabilization Act and everything involved. We'll cover this for you in more detail later, but if you want to get a head start on that, again, does it control spending? Really good piece. It goes well with the one you see right there on the sidebar of ConduitNews.com, the conservative budget deception. Go check all of that out. Also, this one's pretty good at ConduitNews.com. Graphic suggests Arkansas and China to merge. This one's just a little write-up about what we did last week, which is I couldn't believe that this actually happened. But the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. Well, let's listen to this. On Tuesday, Conduit News discussed a recently discovered website graphic apparently made by the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, which suggests an Arkansas-China alliance related to the state's continued courting of communist Chinese entities. The graphic seen below features Arkansas's Hawksbill Crag inside a geographical cutout of China. Then, of course, you can see the actual image of Hawksbill's crag, and you can check out the full segment that I did. It's about 12 minutes long right below it. Anyway, you guys can check that out and share it with your friends. We're just kind of, confused here with everything that's going on with China. Why would Arkansas continue to pursue these Chinese entities to get them to come here, use our resources, send the profits back home? I mean, I know they're promising they'll create jobs at some point, but it's just not worth it, especially when you consider, by the way, the board, at what cost freedom? Listen, do you know what's going on in Hong Kong right now? You don't know what's going on? Hong Kong, is more free than the rest of China because the British controlled Hong Kong, for a long time. Matter of fact, what was that movie? The Rush Hour movies. Rush Hour 2 was it Rush Hour 1 or Rush Hour 2 was all about Hong Kong getting its independence, I think. Or am I confusing that with the James Bond movie? I don't know. Rush Hour 1. Anyway, so the turnover. Anyway, Hong Kong, so China has been trying to encroach on Hong Kong's freedoms. It's not a good thing for China if you're a totalitarian state to have a population. There are practicing Christians there who are able to actually go about the business of the gospel in peace, which is what we as Christians pray for. As people who are, have a biblical worldview, who have a gospel-centered worldview. And the country of China is, trying to use some Hong Kong politicians to get what they want. They've been trying to extradite. China wants people extradited from Hong Kong to China, where they'll have no rights and no protections and no presumption of things like the freedom of speech and freedom to worship who you want to worship. This from Reuters. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam said on Tuesday the extradition bill that sparked the Chinese-ruled city's biggest crisis in decades is dead, and that government work on the legislation has been a total failure, but critics accused her of playing with words. Carefully crafted language, it's right. The bill would allow people in Hong Kong to be sent to mainland China to face trial in courts controlled by the Communist Party, sparked huge and at times violent street protests, and plunged the former British colony into turmoil. In mid-June, Lam responded to protests that drew hundreds of thousands of people on the streets by suspending the bill, but that did not stop the demonstrations that shut government offices and brought parts of the financial center to a standstill. I guess the question would be, how many more negative things, how many more ideals that are contrary to American ideals, Americanism, how many more times must China show Arkansas that we're not compatible? We are not compatible. That there's something more valuable than money, and why would we want to do this? And get ready, by the way, for accusations of racism, because if these Chinese communist deals in Arkansas break down, if that happens, the people who stand to make money off of it are going to claim racism or accusations of racism. That's why you don't want the Chinese here, because it has to do with the idea of freedom. They're burning churches over there, and not to mention they're not private companies. They're communist entities disguised as companies.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/conduit news. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. All your life, right?
Yeah. I wish I wrote all of his pieces.
Yeah. Don't we all? But man, they are fantastic. Anyway, so this, I'm going to give you the floor.
Okay.
Because this is the Young Conservative, so we kind of ask the same boilerplate questions. But how did you get a conservative worldview?
Yeah. So it started first. I grew up in a conservative household with parents that worked hard.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Nine 210. No, just joking. All right, welcome back to the program. This is in the first hour here, and it's time to tell you about the Patriots Fact 746. The Patriots Fact 746 are on a mission to educate you about your gun rights. Here in Arkansas, specifically, we have constitutional carry, which is permitless carry. You don't need a weapon to carry open or concealed. Now, this is something that has been proven in courts. It's also been proven with prosecutors where people are wrongfully arrested. So bear in mind, you may get some flack if you do this, unfortunately. You may get pulled in, but every time that somebody gets arrested, they're arrested falsely. The prosecutors don't pursue the charges because they know what the law says, and the burden of proof is so high on the state, there's no way they can prove, because Act 746 of 2013 says that you have to have unlawful intent to use that weapon against another person. They have to be able to prove that, and they have a very difficult time proving that if you're just carrying a weapon, open or concealed. So, and not to mention, there is a real possibility that, and I think these police departments know this at this point, that civil litigation, if you begin to enforce what you think the law is when the law actually is something else, there will be municipalities sued for this, and it's not going to work out too well for you. Because all you got to do is look at what the judge said in the Taft case versus what these prosecutors have done by dropping charges and not pursuing them. There are some, unfortunately, there may be some that think, well, you may beat the charge, but you won't beat the ride, but we are going to have to just persevere through that. And eventually we will come to a consensus, and the people's voices will be heard here. So search for the Patriots Vac 746 on Facebook. Ask to become a part of that group today. And joining us from the Patriots is Mr. Dan Borum on the line. Dan, how are you, sir?
Hey, Paul, I'm very good this morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Sorry, we had a graphic snafu there. I'm doing good, Dan. Let me ask you. Last time I had you on, I think was the day after this meeting in June. I think on the 18th of June. And
Correct.
Did you have a chance to watch that video where the lawmakers were apparently disagreeing with what the state police believe the law says?
Yes, sir. Have watched it numerous times now, and it every time it just leaves me, just with the wow factor. Every time I watch it, Paul.
What do you think is the biggest problem with the Arkansas State Police's argument here?
Well, the biggest problem is you'll notice Representative Payton, right off the bat, in the queue, asked him, "Do we have the right as Arkansans to carry a weapon, concealed or unconcealed, without a permit? Do we have that?" And we find that the director of the Arkansas State Police continued to go back to the concealed carry statute from 1995 and completely snubs his nose at the law that came into play, what we refer to as Act 746, which is 573-120. He, along with his general counsel, refuses to acknowledge what Act 746 did.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the biggest problem that we have, is they continue to go back and say, we have to go with what the governor tells us.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just totally snubbing their nose at the law, Paul. So that's one of the biggest problems that we have. When it comes to law enforcement, you would think that the top director in the state concerning law enforcement would be the one to set the precedent of obeying the law and following the law. But yet we still have this problem of doing this waltz, this Texas two-step in the state of Arkansas. And frankly, we're getting our bellies full of it. We're tired of it.
I completely agree. What I would like to say to the Arkansas State Police is the 90s called, and they want their gun control policy back. This is 2019. The law was changed in 2013, and so this is ridiculous. I want to cut now to the video where I believe we've got Senator Terry Rice questioning Bill Bryant, the head of the Arkansas State Police.
That's right, concerning Taft.
Yeah, concerning the Taft decision. So, Joe, can you cue this up for us and go ahead and hit and whenever you're ready, just go.
I'm just going to there's enough questions being asked, but I was sent this. Do you agree or disagree with the judge's ruling on the Taft case that said merely possessing a weapon is not a crime in the state of Arkansas?
From visiting, I'm not an attorney, but visiting with my attorneys, they felt that case more addressed reasonable suspicion than it did concerning whether carrying a concealed weapon. But again, that's a novice from what my attorneys are advising me at the state police.
So what your attorney said a while ago, or somebody said, because it hadn't been tested, you can't go further in stating that. Y'all are waiting for it to be tested in court beyond this.
Besides just a lower court, we haven't got anything from the Arkansas Supreme Court.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So Dan
Representative
Boren,
Womack.
what's your response to that?
That is amazing to me. The director, Colonel Bryant, said that his lawyers has advised him that dealt more with reasonable suspicion rather than a concealed carry or a Second Amendment issue, which is absolutely ridiculous. If you go back and read, anybody can pull it up and read, that Jamie Taft versus the state of Arkansas in the Court of Appeals, and read the entire document. Over and over and over again, it has reference to Jamie Taft described as a man who had a pistol in his waistband. When the officer pulled him over as he was walking, he was 2 miles away from the store where they had originally called in on him because of suspicious behavior. And he left the store and was walking toward the county line. He was 2 miles away when the deputy pulled him over, made a U-turn in on Highway 270, which is obviously a fairly dangerous highway, and turned his blue lights on. Well, at the moment that he turned his blue lights on, he detained him, whereas the officer was arguing that he turned the blue lights on for the purpose of safety, and I can understand that. But Taft doesn't know that, and so at that moment he believes that he is detained. And so, based upon a reasonable suspicion, okay, what is the reasonable suspicion? The reasonable suspicion, based upon what was told to the officers, were that he was walking in and out of the store and had a pistol in his waistband. And the officer said that upon pulling up on him, as Taft took a couple of steps away and then turned around and acknowledged the blue lights and faced the officers, put his hand toward his left pocket, and then was reaching around toward his right pocket, the officer then employed his weapon and told Taft to raise his hands. And then they began a search and seizure upon him. Well, that in itself is not reasonable suspicion. You have to have, there is some difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause. And the reasonable suspicion, just at the mere fact of possessing a weapon, is not a case for reasonable suspicion.
According to the judge, too. I mean, that's indicta in the opinion.
That's right. In the Court of Appeals, the judge said that a mere possession of a weapon, according to 573-120, is not enough for reasonable suspicion to detain a man. Therefore, all of the evidence, even though yes, Taft was in the wrong on some things, but according to all the evidence, then had to be considered as fruit from the poisonous tree, and it had to be suppressed.
Exactly. I mean, I've got it right here, page 9 of the decision. The state argued that Officer Davis seized Taft because he had to determine the lawfulness of Taft's conduct going in and out of the store and carrying that weapon and acting suspiciously. Merely possessing a weapon is not a crime in the state of Arkansas. And then it cites 573-120. A person commits the offense of carrying a weapon if he or she possesses a handgun on or about his person with the purpose to attempt to unlawfully employ the handgun as a weapon against the person. In general, merely possessing a handgun on your person does not violate 573-120 and may be done if it does not violate other laws or regulations. Under the clear language of Section 573-120, the possessor of a handgun must have an unlawful intent to employ it as a weapon against a person in order to make the possession a criminal act. That is the meat of the decision, and that last sentence is actually it sums it up. It's black and white. They want to say it was a Fourth Amendment issue, the police do, but they're hiding behind that.
Yes, they are.
And they're hoping that nobody actually goes and reads the opinion. Go ahead.
That's exactly right. And the officer himself said that that Taft had not committed any traffic violations or any criminal acts before activating the blue lights. So at the moment that he activated the blue lights, based upon even his own testimony, he violated. Yes, there was a violation of the Fourth Amendment. There's no doubt about that. But also, the reasonable suspicion was based upon the mere possession of a weapon, and that is not enough for reasonable suspicion in the state of Arkansas, as it has clearly been brought out in the Court of Appeals. And what we have in Colonel Bryant's testimony, along with General Counsel, is they're saying that his lawyers are telling him that that was a Fourth Amendment issue and had nothing to do with the mere possession of a weapon. And you're exactly right. They're hiding behind it. They do not want to admit the truth. And then we even have lawmakers, they're saying that Taft did not set case law. So what authority does the Court of Appeals have if it doesn't set case law?
Well,
it does set case law.
And no one challenged it to a higher court. I mean, they let this lie.
Right.
They let this guy go. They threw out everything about it, and that's what's frustrating. We have so you have the Taft case. There's a lot of stuff going on here. You actually have the Arkansas State Police are in blatant defiance of all three branches of government, because you have the Attorney General. Okay, the Attorney General has issued an opinion, and it wasn't an opinion that I totally agree with, but she got the first part right when she said there is no statutory penalty for carrying a weapon concealed without a concealed handgun permit. It doesn't exist. So then Leslie Rutledge says, okay, the legislature needs to provide clarity. Legislature comes, the people's representatives, the people's House and the Senate, and they pass 2 resolutions agreeing with the court case, citing the court case, and saying Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. You don't need a permit to carry a gun, open or concealed. Arkansas State Police now says we're going against the Attorney General's opinion. We are also going against, refusing to acknowledge the legislative action that took place. I know it was a non-binding resolution, but why do you need to pass more laws when you're just clarifying? Yeah, and then you have the Arkansas State Police ignoring the judicial opinion, saying, well, we need for this to be tested in court, when it's now in dicta in a circuit court opinion. So they are going against all 3 branches of government here. It's insane. Exactly.
And that is exactly right. And when you look at the qualifications of the judges in the Court of Appeals, the question of their authority, according to Amendment 80, Section 5, that the judges of the Court of Appeals have the same qualifications as Supreme Court justices. And the whole reason for the Court of Appeals was to take pressure off of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court was having so many cases come in, and the judges, and so the Court of Appeals came into play to help bring pressure off of them. That the fact that the Court of Appeals does not set case law is ridiculous. It does set case law, and we still, not only to the Arkansas State Police, but we still have legislators who do not understand, or they're not in the knowledge of the fact that case law has been set. And so now we have that, and there is no way that you can blatantly say that in the state of Arkansas we do not have constitutional carry, and yet right there, the director of the Arkansas State Police, general counsel that was sitting beside him, said that in order to carry a weapon concealed in Arkansas, you must have a permit. That is just a slap in the face to all Arkansans. And I'm, not just me, but all across the state, from every corner of the state, we have had our belly full of it. And they continue to go back and say that we are a branch of the executive and that we have to do what the executive tells us to do.
I know.
Which that tells me that the executive then himself is ignoring the law.
No, he is. The governor is. He back during the Republican primary, he issued an opinion on constitutional carry that wasn't he called it constitutional carry, but he maintained this idea that if you want to carry concealed, you have to have a permit. And that's what the goal is. The Arkansas State Police wants this manufactured confusion so that they can get the legislature to revisit Act 746, take away some of our rights, with the goal to say, fine, you can open carry without a permit, but if you want to conceal carry, you're going to have to get a permission slip, and that will not happen. It will not fly. I don't think the legislature is going to do that in Arkansas, taking away your gun rights when we have this deregulation, this freedom that we've enjoyed since 2013.
Absolutely.
And they're trying to circumvent us, and really what they're trying to do is oppress us. I mean, that's what this is. This is oppression, Dan Borum.
Oppression, money, power. Follow the money. It always shows you the root of the evil. And one thing that frustrated me when I watched several times, I watched that interview at the Capitol with the Arkansas State Police, is that the lawmakers, while I was very proud of some of the lawmakers and some of the questions that they asked. I was proud of Senator Ballinger. I was proud of Senator Stubblefield, Representative Payton.
They did a good job.
Several. But they kept saying, so we need to clarify this. Dadgummit, Paul, it's clear.
Yeah,
it is so clear. It is so easy to understand. And I'm frustrated with the fact that they keep saying we need clarification. We have the clarification. Now let's just acknowledge it. And in the meantime, the patriots of Act 746, we are going to continue to educate. We are going to build our power in numbers. We're going to continue bringing people on board, educate the masses, the citizens of the state of Arkansas, and we are going to come in force in this next legislative session because we're going to have a big fight on our hands, Paul.
I think
because this is exactly what they want, is to get it back on the table, and they want to get their cash cow flowing again the way it was before. Because buddy, it's hard. It's hard when you have to when you get cut off the flow. It's hard to learn how to change your standards and live within your means.
Yeah, you're right about that. You know, and everybody is saying this is about money, and yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Oh, and by the way, you're right. The lawmakers did a good job questioning them because they know what the law says, but they need to remove the word clarification out of their vocabulary.
That's right.
There's no reason to do that. We've already made so much progress in this fight. Okay, and the fact that John Payton a whole session ago got his act passed, which I think was Act 486 or something like that.
Yes. Yes.
The state police are completely ignoring that, by the way. Which
yes, they are.
We may need a whole other segment to talk about what that law said. But
yes.
it reined in this argument about the concealed carry statute being trumping this new statute. But
right.
Again, we're talking with Dan Bourne from the Patriots of Act 746. Yeah, but they've got to remove this clarity. This word clarity from their vocabulary. I want to ask you a question. I asked it of Jim Ennis, your friend and fellow Patriot, last week. But yeah, it may be about the money, but is it racial too? I mean, because what I'm told, Dan, is that there are members of the Arkansas State Police that are telling lawmakers they're being told to enforce the law as it's actually written because they don't want civil litigation, and they know what it is. But publicly, the Arkansas State Police will not admit it. So my other question is it possibly a socioeconomic/racial issue where they don't want lower-income individuals or maybe even it is specifically racial to know they have the right to carry?
Paul, there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that definitely is a play into the whole thing. And what it does is it distinguishes and it separates a whole different class of citizens. Now, okay, if you have the money and you want it and you can pay and go through all of this, then you can have this special privilege to carry, and while everybody else is not allowed because you don't have the money to do so. And frankly, we don't want you carrying because the lower class of citizens and with different ethnicity groups, you are scarier, and we don't need you carrying weapons whatsoever. And so we only want a certain standard of people carrying weapons, and everybody else you're to do without. And so, yeah, I definitely believe that has a play in it.
Yep. Well, if that's the case, there is a window there to actually demonstrate to lawmakers how broad a support the idea of self-defense and the human right of self-defense is among people of all backgrounds, all races. And honestly, I think we've come a long way out of this Jim Crow era, and I don't think we need we don't need to go back. So that's
no,
what
sir. No, sir. We don't need to be doing the Texas two-step here in the state of Arkansas. Mm-hmm. We need to accept the law as it is. What we are doing is we are taking back our God-given, natural-born, inalienable rights that was ours to begin with. We are not privileged by the government. The Second Amendment is not given to us for the purpose of hunting, for the purpose of even self-defense. The purpose of it was to restrain the government from infringing upon our God-given rights, and we need to take it back, and we need to let them know we're not going to take it laying down, that they're going to have a fight on their hands.
Dan Bourne, we're out of time, sir. Thank you so much for being on the program. We appreciate it. It's always great to talk to you. God bless you.
Thank you, Paul. You have a great day, and God bless all of you.
All righty, you too. Folks, Facebook.com, search for the Patriots of Act 746. We got to go. Back in a minute.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
For a living. I saw them work day in, day out, just trying to make a living, provide for me and my brother. And so that made an impact on me. But I think it was the 2008 and 2012 elections when I really started paying attention. So 2008, I was in the 6th or 7th grade. I didn't really know what was going on. I knew my parents wanted John McCain to win. So that's what I went along with. But by 2012, that's when I really started listening to not only what they were saying, but why they were saying it and what was the reasoning behind their positions. And so 2012 was really formative for me, listening to these completely polar opposite positions, because I really think that's when conservative and liberal really got to the polar opposite on the spectrum is 2012. And just asking myself, what kind of America do I want to live in? Yeah. And it was an obvious choice, a conservative, smaller government. And from there on, I've been involved with the Greene County Republican Party, now living in Craighead, joined the Craighead Republican Party committee, and just trying to make at least somewhat of a small difference.
Yeah. No, and I think that's really good. And the 2012 elections, that was, of course, you have Mitt Romney, you have Barack Obama. You have Barack Obama who's saying, if you have a business, you didn't build that. Mm-hmm. And then you had Mitt Romney, who was certainly more pro-business. Mm-hmm. Of course, now we know a lot more about Mitt Romney. That is pretty interesting.
He's not as conservative as he said he was.
Of course not. And he could have won. He might have won if he would have actually treated what happened in Benghazi for what it was and brought it up during the debate. But he didn't do that. So when you hear the word, we're talking about John Williams, young conservative. When you hear the word conservative, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So to me, it means a lot of different things. It's more than just a belief. It's like you said, a worldview. It's a lens by which I look at the world. It's a belief that we were given natural rights by God, and it's the government's responsibility to stay out of our rights, to stay as little as possible. We should have the freedom, the liberty to pursue our dreams without government intrusion. So it's a smaller, limited government for the individual to pursue their dreams, their desires, take chances, make mistakes, and try again. It's hard to do that if you got an overreaching government that is trying to make decisions for you in your life. Mm-hmm. So it's a smaller government, but I also think there's a moral argument can be made for conservatism, especially in the context of capitalist society. a conservative capitalist country is going to result in the most wealth growth for all classes, the lower, the middle, and the upper class. You hear Democrats talking all the time about wanting to create social programs to help the lower class. But the best option for the lower middle class is to create an environment without the government being involved, so that they can take those chances and try making a name for themselves, make a living for themselves without the government being so involved in their life. So I think there's a moral argument can be made that a conservative capitalist country is going to result in the most wealth growth for all individuals in a society, rather than a more socialist, hands-on government approach.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So, I would even kind of expand on that. The opposite of that would be dependency on the government, for these basic, basic things. And so the question would, is there any realm where dependency is immoral? It would be my question. I think the answer is yes. Obviously, I believe in if you can't really help yourself, if you truly can't help yourself, then okay, we've got a program for that, right? Like there's an app for that. But at what point does, and this is, when I was a liberal in college, and a little bit right out of college, I didn't think these things through. You think, okay, well, the Democrats, they're just wanting to help people. But at what point does that help actually hurt individuals? I was watching this documentary, I think, on Netflix a couple of years ago called Poverty, Inc. If you haven't seen this, I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but it's fantastic. You guys listening should check it out. But it has to do with the fact that all these non-governmental organizations are essentially an entity, an industry in and of itself. So there's something bad that happens in a country, earthquake, tsunami, something. Okay, that we initially get there to help people, but then those, people are donated. Those organizations never leave, and in often cases, these third world countries that did have some form of economy, they did have some form of businesses and entities, they never recover. Tom's Shoes is a great example of this. You buy a pair of shoes and they say they'll donate a pair to a needy country. Well, the shoemakers in these countries, these third world countries, when the Tom's Shoes truck gets there and drops off a bunch of free shoes, then all of a sudden, your businesses are, completely, their business is gone overnight. They're not going to be able to they got to wait for all these people to run out of shoes before they can make shoes again. So there is this idea where if you don't leave it up to this, Benjamin Franklin said, people need to be uncomfortable in their poverty so that they can get out of the poverty. So, being somebody who's young, how long have you been out of college, John?
About a little over 2 years.
Okay, so 2 years. So when you were in college, were you around a lot of liberals? I mean, were there a lot of people that had this progressive worldview that, hey, well, it's the Democrats that want to help people. The Republicans don't, which is not true, by the way. But how did you combat that?
Yeah, so I encountered that a lot. I majored in communications, then I picked up a second major in philosophy. So I took a lot of social and political philosophy courses, and certainly didn't encounter a lot of leftist liberal thought in those courses. And I welcomed it. I knew why I believed what I did. And I think the challenge was good to help solidify why I believed what I did.
Yes.
So I didn't look at it as a bad thing. I looked at it as an opportunity. Okay, this is a great way for me to better understand what I believe and better articulate that whenever I'm questioned by someone that may disagree with me. Now, the same can't be said for everyone. A lot of people, when they hear a professor talk, they're going to take their word for it. They're not going to go fact check. They're not going to go look for themselves. Is this really true? Or is there a better option?
Right.
Because socialism, it may sound great on paper, but when you start reading and you really look at what all that entails, it's not going to result in the best society possible for all individuals.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome, Arkansas. How are you? I'm glad that you're with us. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Hour number 2 here. By the way, congratulations. I haven't even brought this up, but congratulations to Lee Radovsky, who has been nominated as a federal judge, replacing Leon Holmes to the Eastern District of Arkansas. So Donald Trump has nominated him to replace. This guy was the Arkansas Solicitor General, the top litigator for Leslie Rutledge. He also was part of Walmart's, let's see, what does this say over at the Federalist Society? Former Solicitor General of Arkansas. He currently works as the Senior Director of Walmart's Global Anti-Corruption Compliance Program. Let's hope. Let's wish him well, and let's hope that as a federal judge, when he sees these cases, these corruption cases, that he throws the book at people. So. Anyway, congratulations to him. I haven't even mentioned that. I mean, that's kind of a big deal if Trump is putting somebody in place to replace a federal judge. It's a big deal. So, and the president has gotten so many judges through. And matter of fact, where is that USA Today article? I want to start there. I want to feature this USA Today article. Because this really is, I think, really, really good. But I got to first turn off my ad blocker because they've gotten smart. They've gotten too smart. That's it. What's that breaking news say? Britain's ambassador to the U.S. resigns days after his leaked emails betrayed Trump's White House. That's fantastic. Well, so there you go. All right, so we have this story here. Donald Trump is the president I didn't want, but now I know we need. Kind of like Batman in The Dark Knight. I'm not the, what is it? I'm not the hero you want, but I'm the hero you need. Okay, so this is a cartoonist, okay? A guy by the name of Gary Varvel. Varvel, really? Okay, Gary Varvel, and he is a cartoonist, and he has written a cartoon, drawn a cartoon, then Donald Trump as a clown, now as President of the United States, okay? And this is what he wrote. Over the years, my caricatures of Donald Trump have evolved, but not as much as my opinion of him. When Trump announced he was running for president, I admit that I didn't take this millionaire hotel magnate, reality TV show celebrity as a serious candidate. I doubted his ability to do the job. So I drew him as a clown. In fact, my cartoons were as critical of him as many of my liberal cartoonist friends. Then, Trump started a war with the news media, tagging major news outlets as fake news. I'm in the media. And while Trump promised to pursue conservative policies, this conservative cartoonist doubted his sincerity. After all, it wasn't that long ago that he was on the left. In the crowded primary field, Trump got the most attention by being the loudest. His tweets could not be ignored by the media and resulted in Trump dominating news coverage. I found his personal attacks sophomoric. I mean, calling his opponents low-energy Jeb, Lion Ted, Little Marco, Crazy Bernie, and Crooked Hillary was not presidential. It was childish, but it worked. He won, and they lost. In this braggadocious, I'm the greatest culture, Trump became the Muhammad Ali of politicians. His claims of, I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created, I'm really rich, I'm very highly educated, I'm the best fill in the blank, stretched credulity, but was certainly entertaining. In one of the debates, Trump admitted that he was an entertainer, but said that he was more than an entertainer. He was a businessman, and that's the kind of mindset this country needs to bring it back. Soon his rallies were filled with people who believed that he was the real hope and change America needed. In 1992, millionaire businessman Ross Perot said the country needed to be run like a business. He was great at listing the country's problems, but he didn't communicate how he would fix them. By the way, Ross Perot died yesterday. This article was written a few days ago. Trump identified the problems and fixes. His political promises were simple, repeated often and easily remembered. Build the wall, repeal and replace Obamacare, cut taxes, destroy the Islamic State group, renegotiate better trade deals, and make America great again. So how in the world did Trump change my mind, he writes. He started keeping those promises. First, he picked Mike Pence as his running mate. As I've written before, I've known Pence for over 20 years, and he has the conservative bona fides, so of course I supported this decision. Then, after taking office, Trump began to reverse Barack Obama's executive orders and burdensome regulations on businesses. He approved the Keystone XL pipeline. He cut taxes, and the economy picked up steam. Again, I support these decisions. Sure, he failed to repeal Obamacare, but its individual mandate was repealed in the tax cut bill. As a Christian, I've been accused of hypocrisy, and my faith has been questioned for not condemning Trump's past extramarital affairs, his language and treatment of women. Look, I know he's a deeply flawed man. So am I. The Bible says we all are. But evangelicals believe in grace and forgiveness and are commanded to pray for our leaders, so I support him in prayer. And let me stop there. The fact that there are secular people calling evangelicals hypocrites for voting for President Donald Trump says, in my opinion, first of all, that the secular people don't actually understand what the gospel message is. Because if we're waiting on a perfect candidate to vote for, we're going to have to wait till Jesus comes, and we're not going to vote for him because he's a king, and there's no voting that's going to go on. That's number one. Number two, what does it say about the churches, what the church has communicated as far as what the gospel is? Because to me at least, they're claiming evangelicals are a hypocrite because they believe that what the gospel is a list of do's and don'ts and a way to work your way to heaven, which is not the gospel at all. Christianity is the only world religion that says you can't work your way to heal this chasm between you and a holy God. Only Jesus can do that. Only Jesus can make you presentable. And so, I mean, I've heard this a lot, and there are some people out there who are almost ashamed to even talk about politics now because maybe they're younger and they secretly want the approval of their secular friends, and they don't. It's an opportunity. Donald Trump being president and being a flawed man and being open about those flaws, by the way, is a perfect opportunity for you to tell your friend what the gospel actually is, more importantly, what it's not. Because if we're waiting for a perfect candidate, and so many of these politicians have been exactly like Trump, but have hidden it from us. Oh, he's not presidential. That's one of the reasons they can't stand this man, because Donald Trump is what these men are behind closed doors in a lot of cases. And that's what's so refreshing, is that Donald Trump appears to be so honest in terms of, here I am, this is who I am. Excuse me. So that's my little spiel on the church. Back to this article. Again, a conservative cartoonist saying, I didn't like Trump at first, but he is the president we need. He goes on. Trump has proven to be a pro-religious liberty, pro-life, and pro-Israel president. He moved the American embassy to Jerusalem. He pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement and the Trans-Pacific Partnership and began negotiations to denuclearize North Korea. I support all these policies. There have been a few hiccups. Trump signed a budget bill that increased the national debt, which is now over $21 trillion. The Russia probe is still a cloud over his administration, and I don't like trade wars, he writes. But here's the dominating reason I've changed my mind about Trump's ability to lead. Judges. I support his picks of Justice Neil Gorsuch, his new U.S. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, and a host of conservative federal judges that Trump has gotten confirmed. I shudder to think of the activist judges that a President Hillary Clinton would have picked. In my opinion, Trump has had the most successful 18 months as president than any other I've ever drawn. So yes, I support his presidency. I admit I was wrong about Trump. He's not a clown. He's a businessman, entertainer, and now the president that I didn't want, but now think we need. Again, Gary Varvel is a cartoonist and columnist from the Indianapolis Star, which would also explain, by the way, his connection with Mike Pence. Mike Pence did talk radio in Indiana. And this article, by the way, is poignant. I said it was written a few days ago. I meant to say it was written a year ago. Okay? So this was from July of 2018. And it sticks out because Ross Perot, he mentions Ross Perot. Well, Ross Perot died yesterday. And so, anyway, fascinating. Donald Trump is president. I didn't want, but now, it's a interesting flashback. And I honestly think, and of course, that whole Russia collusion thing, that dates this article because we now see the Mueller report. You know what's fascinating to me about the Mueller report is if you listen to talk radio host Mark Levin, he is all over the violations that the special counsel has in terms of violating what a special counsel is supposed to be, the rules of special counsel. In that you have the initial report, 200 pages, but then you get this other 200-page report. And Levin says that's a violation of the rules, the guidelines. And he says, obviously, the Democrat attorneys that Robert Mueller hired, they knew there was no collusion. They knew that the initial 200-page report was going to be put out. And so then they crafted this secondary document just to try to trash the president as much as they possibly can because they knew the people were eventually going to see that there was no collusion. So they created a look over here document of all of these other things, no crimes, but just – and I find, to me, the one guy who's really an authority on this, who was, chief of staff to Attorney General in the Reagan administration, Mark Levin, he's the guy, in my opinion, who is the authority on what's appropriate with the special counsel and what's not appropriate. So look up the stuff he's been saying if you want more. Coming up at the top of the hour, the bottom of this hour, we're going to be talking with Patrick Deakins. He's a Washington County Justice of the Peace. They're dealing with a lot of proposed tax increases, jail overcrowding over in northwest Arkansas. So we're going to talk to him and see what the latest is on that. Also, Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted pedophile, looks real bad for Bill Clinton. I said this yesterday. Bill Clinton is in trouble. And remember, every time we talk about Bill Clinton here in Arkansas, we do so with mournful regret that we were the birth of arguably the most powerful political family in the world. It's an albatross around Arkansas's neck. Looks like he's in trouble. But unfortunately, Jeffrey Epstein's Wikipedia page is being edited to remove the ties to Democrats like Bill Clinton. There's also a report on Twitter that Google is scrubbing all of the images between Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton. So that's a problem as well. And when you have these giant tech companies who are aligned with the left, they honestly have no problem saying that the ends justify the means because they're not able to convince the masses that their ideas are better, so they've got to start to cheat. And this is why Google, Facebook, these others, they are inviting government regulation in the future. Also, Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak is warning you to delete your Facebook account. I feel the need to say this, even though we have a large Facebook audience. TMZ interviewed Wozniak at Reagan National Airport last Friday and asked him if he's troubled by Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms infringing on privacy. Wozniak responded by saying, social platforms are eavesdropping on our private conversations and sending personal data to advertisers. With the lack of privacy on social media, he said most people should delete their accounts. Quote, there are many different kinds of people, and some, the benefits of Facebook are worth the loss of privacy. But to many, like myself, my recommendation is, to most people, you should figure out a way to get off Facebook. He said, everything about you. I mean, they can measure your heartbeat with lasers now. They can listen to you with a lot of devices. Who knows if my cell phone is listening right now? Alexa has already been in the news a lot. Quote, so I worry because you're having conversations that you think are private. You're saying words that really shouldn't be listened to because you don't expect it. But there's almost no way to stop it. Now that's frightening. Think about the conversations that you've had with your wife. Think about the conversations that you've had with your children. Think about the things that you say that you wouldn't want other people outside your family to know that you said. We all have private conversations. The thing is, they're not private. And we're eventually all going to find this out, but it's pretty, something's got to be done about it, but I don't know what the answer is. All I can do is report you what people are saying. It seems like these private companies are listening to everything you're saying, and what? Yeah, what cost freedom? Yeah, that's a great point. And then when you know that the government has back doors in all these private companies that are internet based, then you really have a problem. So did I read where the Utah data center caught on fire the other day? Hang on one second. I know we got to go to break, but look at this. Hang on, Utah data center. I thought there was a fire. Yeah, a wildfire burns near Camp Williams NSA data center in Bluffdale. Huh. Remember the NSA data center? We're going to take a break. Back in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. Yeah, I think socialism looks great on a chalkboard, looks great on paper. The only way it works is if you have perfect human beings.
And we're not.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work.
Yeah, and Milton Friedman said many times, there's that Donahue clip that goes around the YouTube about angels. You know, show me, where are these angels that are going to govern the affairs of men in your utopia, in your socialist system? And I think that's what so many people on the left, especially as we've pushed God out of public life, are having to deal with. The fact that a lot of people want to be perfect. They have this quest for perfection, but they don't understand that, first of all, that's not who we are naturally as we're born into this world. So talk about, has your faith, does your faith in a higher power, does that shape your political opinions? I mean,
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Bernie Marcus is a billionaire. He is co-founder of Home Depot, and he has made headlines by sharing that he plans to give 80 to 90% of his wealth, estimated at $4.53 billion by Bloomberg or $5.8 billion by Forbes, to charity when he dies. The former Home Depot chairman also revealed in the same Atlanta Journal-Constitution interview that he will be donating to Donald Trump's 2020 re-election campaign as well. Indeed, he donated $7 million to help elect Trump in 2016. And now, some enraged customers on social media say they are boycotting the home improvement chain stores, which does about $108 billion in annual sales. They claim to be cutting up their Home Depot cards and say they plan to shop at competitors like Lowe's. Well, who do you think Lowe's is going to support? Who do you think Lowe's is going to support? I mean, maybe Lowe's will be silent in all of this, but here's the thing. I mean, it's a hardware store. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's a hardware superstore. Okay, people that know that the economy doesn't grow unless you build things. You got to build things and got to sell them. No wonder the Home Depot co-founder doesn't like socialism and has made videos against socialism. This is hilarious to me because you remember a couple years back, Home Depot was being called Homo Depot. Do you know why they were calling Home Depot Homo Depot? Because they were supporting LGBT things. And in some way, I don't know, they had some employee policy. I don't remember what it was exactly, but they were maybe they contributed to something. I don't remember, but that's why. I mean, there was stories upon stories about Home Depot was down with the cause. So down with the cause of do what you want to do in your own room. Who cares? Live how you want to live and let live. But when it comes to socialism, I think I'd rather keep, more of my money. I don't want to be for, and so that's why they're supporting Trump, and now everyone's losing their minds. It's funny how quickly people forget. It also goes to show there is no appeasing the left. There are people on the right that can be like, well, we'll agree sometimes and we'll disagree other times. We can work together though the next time we agree. People on the left can't do that because they are on some ever-evolving quest to perfect themselves and perfect society, and they're going to see over and over again that's something that humans are not able to do. We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. Well,
I think that's the core of what shapes my beliefs. It all stems from my belief in God, that we do have these inalienable rights that God has given us, and we are to protect those not only for ourselves but for other individuals. I was just reading the other day, Margaret Thatcher had a quote one time, people are always concerned about getting a grant, getting a government handout, but in reality we should rely on each other, not the government, to help us when we're in need. And I think that's where my Christian faith comes in. I'm not supposed to go seek help from the government. I'm supposed to seek help from my fellow.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
hey folks, welcome back. Man, I just read a crazy article on Jeffrey Epstein. I'm gonna get to before the end of the show. It's crazy. Wait until you hear this. That's the first thing. Second thing is, welcome back to the program. We've got the Washington County Justice of the Peace. You know what? We've got the Washington County Justice of the Peace. Patrick Deakins is back with us. Patrick, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Paul. It's always good to be on the show, man. It's been too long. I know we had talked that long ago, but it's been too long.
I know, man. It's good to see you. It's good to have you on as always. So tell me, what's going on with Washington County right now? I know you guys have been battling some overcrowding in your jails, and there's some talk of maybe a sales tax increase. What's going on with that?
Oh, man, I'm really excited about some of the things we got going on right now. Maybe it might help. I just want to give some quick background of this. The Washington County has had probably a jail population problem, overcrowding problem for probably 4 to 5 years now that prior courts have been dealing with, and really have not made any progress on that front at all to try to alleviate that or make us find a solution. So, Washington County was unique in this last election. There's 15 justices on the Washington County Quorum Court. 9 of those people on this current court are brand new people. There's 9 brand new justices. So what really was kind of interesting was to solve the solution, there was really some 11th hour stuff thrown together after the November elections last year. And in that December Quorum Court meeting, what popped up was a $40 million tax increase. $40 million worth of bonds that would have been funded through a sales tax increase, a 0.5 cent increase in sales taxes. So I felt like there was a big movement to just try to get that pushed through at the 11th hour under that old court's term, and then when we all got sworn in, it failed. Fortunately, we all got sworn in. What we had to do is we had to start grappling with those same ordinances to raise taxes. And I'm very proud of myself and my colleagues by saying that with all those new faces, they really stood up and under a lot of pressure from a lot of people saying, we got to get this done, just pass it, put it to the ballot. It was going to be a special election. We would have referred it to the ballot on a special election. A lot of people have stood up and said, no, we really need to be deliberate. We need to research this problem. We need to try to get our arms wrapped around it. So here's fast forward to where we're at today. Those ordinances that increased taxes were killed in committee in June. So that's very fortunate for the people of Washington County. I cannot stress how close people in Washington County came to a $40 million tax increase. With my opinion, that there was not a lot of thought put into those numbers, and there was no other alternatives studied. So what we're doing now is we just had our jails committee meeting for July Monday night, and what we're doing is we're going to actually hire an ombudsman to come in, and what his role is going to be is to start looking at and studying our jail population, seeing if there's people in there that don't need to be held in jail. What one of the big issues in Washington County is a lot of our jail population are pretrial individuals, so they're not even convicted yet. They're in jail holding, and we want to study why those people are there. Do they need to be there? If they need to be there, absolutely be there. If they're just there sitting, waiting on a hearing or bond, how do we get the judicial process moving quicker and more efficiently to process those people out and get some alleviation there? And that actually, and I'm proud to say, that actually came from Sheriff Felder. He has brought up this idea. So, I think there's a lot of people working together and a lot of people participating in this. And like I said, I'm just really excited about how everybody's working together to try to solve this problem when there was so much pressure just to pass it on to a special election and build a jail that we may not have needed.
Wow. That is a lot. That's very positive. I can tell that you're very upbeat about this, Patrick, because, the easy thing to do would be to just pass a tax increase. You guys said, no, the hard thing is let's actually do our jobs and dig into this and find a solution where we're not asking the people to pay more money to the government.
Absolutely, and that's really the lesson. I know you've got a lot of listeners. The vast majority don't live in Washington County, so this isn't their local issue. But what I want them to hear is when they go out into their communities and their localities and they start trying to be leaders, that there's some common threads to some of these arguments that they're going to get faced with for tax increases and stuff. And I want them to feel empowered by looking at our example that you don't necessarily have to buckle to that type of pressure. And absolutely, it's much easier for the justice just to say, okay, well, we'll let I heard that a lot. Well, we should just let the people decide. And we know what that really means if you were to throw that out there on a special election, probably one-sided in terms of funding and stuff like that. And, we all know how people are busy. They don't have time to keep up with some of these issues. And, unfortunately, that might have passed. And that's not the best solution for Washington County. And we know that. We know that as we work on this issue, that would not have been the best solution for Washington County. And so even if you know that, there's still a lot of pressure from even your colleagues and people around to say, well, just let the people decide. And that's not your role. If you know it's not, you need to put the best options out to the people. And, that's really, to me, my role as a leader on the quorum court. And, my colleagues feel the same way.
Yeah, and this is an argument that you hear in the state legislature. Well, we just want the people to decide, and it's a phony argument. In a lot of ways, it's done to vote for a tax increase, but still being able to say, well, I didn't vote for the tax increase, I just voted for people to decide. And it's a deceptive argument because if you have run on a lower taxes or no new taxes platform, why would you ever vote for something that creates the possibility of higher taxes? And I have tried to stress that. And, in my community over on the other side of the state, in Craighead County, in Jonesboro, the city's trying to pass a full cent sales tax for a swimming pool facility and a bunch of other stuff. And that's their argument. They've created a special election. It's right after school. Everyone goes back to school, and it's going to be this attempt to tax the people more. So they have done the opposite of what the Washington County Quorum Court has done, Patrick.
Well, and that's quite unfortunate. I think when you get in these leadership roles and you get down into the weeds, there is this unfortunate tendency in people to move away from what their position was, their platforms, and I find that absolutely. And it's not. I don't think it's deliberative, and I don't think it's malicious. But I think maybe just in their work, they start to doubt their platform. But I'm a lucky person. I represent District 5 in Washington County. It's an unincorporated part of the county. It's rural. It's blue collar. It's agriculture. When I was running for office, I got around and knocked a lot of doors. And when I was communicating my platform of limited government, no new taxes, finding efficiencies in what we're doing, people echoed that very well. And so I feel very empowered to go down there. I'm the people's representative. What they elect us for is they don't have time pursuing their jobs and families to go down there and get in the nuts and bolts of this like this. So they're counting on me to be their mouthpiece and their workhorse down there to bring them back solutions. And so I feel very empowered by that. I feel a very high amount of responsibility in that area. And I want all people who want to get involved in government to feel that same way.
Wow. Again, we're talking with Patrick Deakins. He's a Washington County Justice of the Peace, talking about how they're just looking at other ideas, and there are other ideas out there. So let me ask you about your colleagues. I mean, obviously, the Washington County Quorum Court must have, elected some people who don't believe in tax increases, right? I mean, your colleagues believe like you, and that's a big change. I mean, you said you had 9 new members out of the 15-member Quorum Court.
Yeah, so there's 15. There's 8 Republicans and 7 Democrats. But, I think what's interesting is I think this jails thing has been a culmination of both ideas that would traditionally be in the conservative movement of fiscal responsibility and stuff like this, but also there's been a lot of, I've worked very well with my colleagues on what would be considered to be the left side of the aisle, because they're very interested in criminal justice reform and things like that would help these people out. And what a weird perfect storm we're living in right now, because this all culminates. I don't think Washington County's problems are unique with, a lot of the people we're arresting and detaining have drug addictions, mental health issues, opioid crisis has hit us pretty hard. And we see that from even the federal level with Trump's administration really highlighting that. We need to do some things in that area. So it's really just been a great culmination of a lot of teamwork on a lot of levels.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's encouraging. Well, Patrick, I appreciate you calling in, giving us an update from Washington County. Sounds like you guys are having some success, and I just wish you the best of luck and keep up the good work.
I appreciate you, buddy, and hopefully I got some more updates for you in a few months to keep this ball rolling.
All righty. Patrick Deakins, everybody. Appreciate it, sir. Be safe.
Thanks, sir.
All righty, folks. Telephone number 870-275-9799. We got your meme of the day coming at you here in a little bit. We're going to take a break. I want to get to this new Jeffrey Epstein story that was just sent to me with some pretty bold accusations. We talked yesterday about how Bill Clinton's in trouble. The internet's being scrubbed, according to reports of Bill Clinton pictures and Jeffrey Epstein. The corporate media is still pushing this idea that maybe this is how we'll get Donald Trump. I'll have more on this when we come back.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Neighbor, and I'm supposed to offer help whenever someone is struggling that I know.
Yeah.
So I think there's a reliance that we need to have on each other rather than the government, and I think that stems a lot from my Christian beliefs, and that's, I think, why we see conservative Christians donate more to charity than any other group in the United States.
Yeah.
I think it stems from that idea.
You raised some really good points. Again, we're talking with John Williams. This is a young conservative segment. Yeah, and I've heard this said before. A lot of churches today, they believe that they themselves, failed by not taking care of the poor enough that made these government programs spring up. Now, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. I really don't, because I think that, I think there's some truth to that. But I think now, when it comes to, because there are ministries that are growing, there are churches that are growing, there are studies from the Heritage Foundation that will tell.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
I met Secretary Acosta this first time I know when I made the deal to bring him on into the administration. I can tell you that for 2.5 years he's been just an excellent Secretary of Labor. He's done a fantastic job. Now, part of it is our economy is so good, our unemployment numbers are at record lows. So many good things are happening. But the fact is he's been a very good Secretary of Labor. What happened 12 or 15 years ago with respect to when he was a U.S. attorney, I think in Miami. Is it Miami?
Yes.
If you go back and look at everybody else's decisions, whether it's a U.S. attorney or an assistant U.S. attorney or a judge, you go back 12 or 15 years ago or 20 years ago and look at their past decisions, I would think you'd probably find that they would wish they maybe did it a different way. I do hear that there were a lot of people involved in that decision, not just him. I can only say this from what I know, and what I do know is that he's been a great, really great Secretary of Labor. The rest of it we'll have to look at. We'll have to look at it very carefully. But you're talking about a long time ago. And again, it was a decision made, I think, not by him, but by a lot of people. So we're going to look at it very carefully. We'll be looking at that very carefully. Okay? Okay, anybody else?
Jeffrey Epstein is a terrific guy.
Well, I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. I mean, people in Palm Beach knew him. He was a fixture in Palm Beach. I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan. I was not, a long time ago. I'd say maybe 15 years. I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his. So I feel very badly, actually, for Secretary Acosta, because I've known him as being somebody that works so hard and has done such a good job. I feel very badly about that whole situation. But we're going to be looking at that and looking at it very closely.
Stop. All right. Go ahead and get the cancel button. All right. So check this out. That's the president yesterday from the Oval Office talking about Jeffrey Epstein and Alex Acosta, his labor secretary. Pay very close attention to the words the president uses. He says, I think there's more people involved in that decision when Jeffrey Epstein got the sweetheart prosecutorial deal, which was a non-prosecution deal. He goes on to say that he feels bad for Acosta. Now, so why would he say that? The president has every political motive in the world to fire his labor secretary yesterday, but he doesn't. The question is why. They're looking at it very carefully, and he says that Acosta didn't make the decision by himself. There's a blogger from a website called Liberty Blitzkrieg. His name is Mike Krieger. You don't have it, Joe. Don't worry about it. And the headline is this: Alex Acosta, the labor secretary, reportedly claimed that Jeffrey Epstein, quote, belonged to intelligence. To appreciate the significance of what I'm about to share, he writes, you really need to go back and read yesterday's post. The Jeffrey Epstein rabbit hole goes a lot deeper than you think. In that piece, many lesser known but extremely bizarre facts about Jeffrey Epstein and the people around him. By the way, there's another piece here. I just want to reference the title. Where did it go? I don't have it. It's gone now. But it said that essentially that the Jeffrey Epstein case may reveal the biggest scandal in United States history. That's what some headlines say. So in that piece, extremely bizarre facts about Jeffrey Epstein and the people around him. I also noted that it appeared his real job, that Jeffrey Epstein's real job, according to one blogger, was to run a blackmail operation to ensnare some of the most wealthy and powerful people on earth. This idea of a honeypot, folks, is what he's talking about, especially when there's these, idea that there are photos, if not videos, of the people going to Epstein Island and engaging in these acts, and now you have them on camera. I alluded to the possibility that he was collecting this priceless information on behalf of a third party, and then just today we learned the following via the Daily Beast, writing, is the Epstein case going to cause a problem for confirmation hearings? Acosta had been asked. Acosta had explained breezily, apparently, that back in the day, he'd had just one meeting on the Epstein case. He cut the non-prosecution deal with one of Epstein's attorneys because he had been told to back off, that Epstein was above his pay grade. Quote, I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone, he told his interviewers in the Trump transition, who evidently thought that was a sufficient answer and went ahead and hired Acosta, and the Labor Department has had no comment when asked about this. Again, this is from the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast goes on. For almost 2 decades, for some nebulous reason, whether to do with ties to foreign intelligence, his billions of dollars, or his social connections, Epstein, whose alleged sexual sickness and horrific assaults on women without means or ability to protect themselves is well known in his circle, he remained untouchable. Back to the blog. It should be noted the reason I attach credibility to the above is based on who wrote it, Vicky Ward. She has an extensive history of digging into Epstein and wrote one of the earliest profiles on him back in 2003. As she notes in today's article, quote, I spent many months on his trail in 2002 for Vanity Fair and discovered not only that he was not who he claimed to be professionally, but also that he had allegedly assaulted 2 young sisters, one of whom had been underage at the time. Very bravely, they were prepared to go on the record. They were afraid he'd use all his influence to discredit them, and their fear turned out to be legitimate. As the article was being readied for publication, Epstein made a visit to the office of Vanity Fair's then editor, Graydon Carter, and suddenly, the women and their allegations were removed from the article. He's sensitive about the young women, Carter told me at the time. Editor's note, Carter has previously denied this allegation. He also mentioned he'd finagled a photograph of Epstein in a swimsuit out of the encounter. And there was also some feeble excuse about the article being stronger as a business story. Epstein had also leaned heavily on my ex-husband's uncle Conrad Black to try to exert his influence on me, which was particularly unwelcome given that Black happened to be my ex-husband's boss at the time. Now back to the Blitzkrieg blog. Many people had assumed Epstein was untouchable merely because he had so much dirt on so many powerful people. But it increasingly looks far bigger than even that. It appears he may have been untouchable because he was systematically collecting this information on behalf of an intelligence agency. If so, we need to find out precisely who he was working for. This should be the #1 story in the country right now. Blackmail at this level is a genuine national security issue. And that's the story. That's it. That's all I got. That's incredible, if true. Now, I mean, we're not just citing the blog here. The blog is citing the Daily Beast. The blog is citing Vanity Fair reporting. Alex Acosta saying he only had one meeting about the Epstein case with Epstein's attorney, and he was told that Epstein's above your pay grade, i.e. billionaire untouchable, and that he belonged to intelligence. Now, what does that mean? Folks, I think you can tie this, by the way, to what I said earlier. I was looking for that headline. I guess it's from yesterday. Hang on, I have it right here. Where is it? That's stealth edited. Well, it's strange. I don't know what happened to this article. Anyway, I definitely saw the headline that this may be the one of the biggest stories in the United States history. But very strange stuff here. And, you know, I said yesterday that Bill Clinton is clearly in trouble. And now we have the Wikipedia page of Jeffrey Epstein being scrubbed and edited constantly. They're taking out all connections of Democrat politicians. You have Nancy Pelosi's daughter tweeting, this Epstein arrest may ensnare some of our faves. What does that mean? Some of our faves. On Sean Hannity's radio show yesterday, I don't know if you guys were listening to that, but he was talking a ton about how explosive the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein actually is. And it just goes to show you that, to take a step back from all of this and just look at the media coverage. The big news here, if it was a blackmail operation, how many people have potentially been being blackmailed or being controlled, and in what levels of government or public life, or heck, maybe even people in the news media. But you take a step back and look at the media coverage of this. There's either, we'll finally get Trump now because Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein and Trump had some photos taken with him in 2000. And he once told the New Yorker he's a terrific guy. Obviously leaving that he was banned from Mar-a-Lago after he tried to hit on a 14-year-old daughter of one of the staff members at Mar-a-Lago. We're going to leave all that out. But that's one angle. And then you have this other angle, which is there's so many people who are connected to Epstein that are all now not sleeping well. It's funny. Really and truly, we live in the era, because you can't trust the corporate media, so we live in the area of pick your conspiracy theory.